What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my upset alert games for week number 12 of the 2024 college football season. Going back to last week's upset alert video, we had a couple of games out of the 8 games that I picked. We had a couple of those games that turned out to be upsets. First off, we had Georgia Tech upsetting Miami. That was on the video from last week. And then we had Ole Miss upset Georgia. That was probably an upset that I did see coming, but the Georgia Tech and Miami game, I think an upset probably could have happened as well, and it did. So those were the couple of games that happened from last week on upset alert. Going into this weekend, will we see more upsets, kind of compared to last weekend? Last weekend we did miss a few upsets that did happen. We did see Iowa State lose for the second time in a row. So there were a few games last week that we did miss that we could have put on the video, but we didn't really have enough room. And how this upset alert video works, what we do is we give you 8 games total, 4 games each, and I give you 4 of the games that are least likely to be upsets and then pick 4 games that are most likely to be upsets. And in order for me to call it an upset alert type game, the spread has to be in single digits for me, because if it's in double digits, that could be an upset that least likely would occur, but you never know. Some of those upsets that turn out to be like double-digit underdogs, those things can really turn out to be upsets. So going into this weekend, I'm going to give you the 8 games that I picked out here for upset alert for week number 12. So we'll go from the least likely and work our way to the most likely upsets. So we'll start here with Texas at Arkansas. This one's going to be at noon Eastern time on ABC. Texas is favored by 13.5 points, and the over and under is sitting at 57.5. You got Texas coming off a huge win over Florida last week. That definitely kind of looked like the Texas team that we saw in the first half of the year. And then when Quinn Ewers got hurt, this kind of didn't look like the same Texas team that we saw from the first few weeks of the season, because Texas was definitely like the most dangerous team in the country. Now, they did play pretty well last week, but, is Texas going to come out a little bit more focused compared to last week? I think they will. They're heading on the road here, playing at Arkansas. This is kind of a tough place to play. Arkansas is not a bad team. They're sitting there at 5-4. Yeah, they haven't had a great year, but this is not a bad Arkansas team. These are 2 very good offensive teams. I think this game probably turns into a bit of a shootout. If Arkansas probably maybe runs the football a little bit more than Texas does, and if their defense can come out pretty well in the second half, then Arkansas might have a chance to pull off the upset. They've already done that one time this year. They defeated Tennessee back on October the 5th, but they weren't really that competitive against LSU, and they also weren't really that competitive against Ole Miss. So Texas is definitely a more talented team here, but I really wouldn't be surprised if we saw an upset here. This is definitely a trap game here for the Longhorns, so keep an eye on this one if you're a Texas or Arkansas fan, and this one's at noon Eastern time on ABC. Next up, we got a Group of 5 game, Boise State at San Jose State. This one's going to be at 7 o'clock Eastern time on the CBS Sports Network. Boise State's favored also by 13.5, and the over and under is sitting at 61.5. You got Boise State, that's one of the top Group of 5 teams in the country. They're also the top team in the Mountain West. Their one loss, of course, coming just to Oregon, the number 1 ranked team in the country. And you got Ashton Jeanty, one of the top running backs in the country, but I tell you what, you got to put the Broncos here on upset alert. San Jose State, I don't really watch the Group of 5 teams that much, to be honest, so I'm not going to really know about these 2 teams, but I've been watching Boise State a little bit more than San Jose State, but, based off of what San Jose State looks like, this team has a pretty good shot here to pull off the upset. It's a night game. I don't really know if it's a tough place to play or not at San Jose State, but San Jose State's usually a good team out of the Mountain West, so I do kind of expect maybe an upset that likely could occur here, but this is a double-digit game, so, this is an upset alert game that might not really happen, but you never know. Boise State had a tough game against, Nevada last week, so maybe they kind of overlooked Nevada and were kind of, focused on this game. But yeah, Boise State, I think you got to put them here on upset alert. I would not be shocked here if we saw an upset, but if Boise State loses this game, that's definitely going to shake up the Group of 5 champion going into the college football playoff. So Boise State, you got to put them here on upset alert against San Jose State. Next up, we got Clemson at Pittsburgh. Noon Eastern time on ESPN. Clemson favored by 10 in this one, and the over and under is sitting at 54.5. You got Clemson coming off that bounce-back win against Virginia Tech last week. That was really good news to see that Clemson got a bounce-back win. They're now sitting there at 7-2. Had a couple of tough losses to Louisville and Georgia. There's a really solid losses there for Clemson, but you look at the other side, Pittsburgh. They've been kind of disappointing now for the last couple weeks. They did lose to SMU. That was their first real test as a team that we thought was kind of for real, or maybe they were kind of overrated. And I think we kind of found out that Pittsburgh is a little bit overrated in the last couple of weeks. I'm not saying they're a bad team, but they did not play that well against Virginia. I think Pittsburgh kind of overlooked Virginia, and they were kind of focused on this game. I think the Panthers do come out fired up in this one. I think they're going to have a really big opportunity to pull off an upset here, but yeah, Clemson definitely the more talented team here. I kind of expect both of these teams, to kind of really come out fired up. These are two teams that did lose. We saw Clemson lose to Louisville, and then we saw Pittsburgh lose to SMU. So yeah, both of these teams are identical, 7-2 records. They still want to make a run for the ACC championship. So Clemson and Pittsburgh, I would not be shocked here if we did see an upset, but I think Clemson definitely has a slight advantage in talent-wise, but this one's at noon Eastern time on ESPN. And then the last least likely upset alert game, that's the game of the weekend. Tennessee at Georgia, 7:30 Eastern time on ABC. So this one is the primetime ABC game. Georgia is favored by 10, and the over and under sitting at 48.5. You got Georgia. How do they bounce back after the loss to Ole Miss last week? Boy, Georgia has just been really inconsistent on the offensive side of the football. Carson Beck has had his struggles this year. We've seen him throw 3 interceptions in 3 games this year. He did not do that last week, but he got sacked so many times. The Georgia offensive line really struggled to keep up with the Ole Miss defense. And, the Georgia defense just could not really handle these receivers for Ole Miss. So, Georgia, how do they bounce back here? They're taking on a Tennessee team that is not the best when it comes to the offensive side of the football, but you look at the defense for Tennessee, that's been the strength of this team. They got a really good, solid linebacker group. You got James Pierce Jr., that's one of the best linebackers in the SEC. And Tennessee, again, the injury to Nico Amaliava is definitely a big concern, but I think Josh Heupel said that he is ready to go in this game. So if Tennessee has Nico Amaliava in this game, I think they have a chance to pull off the upset. But if they don't, I don't think this will be a close game whatsoever. Georgia is playing in Athens. I think that's the reason why, this spread is so high at 10 points, because they're playing in Athens. It's a night game. The crowd will be fired up, but I think this is a game that Tennessee can make it close. But yeah, this is definitely a game that I think could definitely be an upset alert type game. Let's now get into the most likely upset alert games for this week, and we will start here with Arizona State at Kansas State in the Big 12. This one's at 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN. Kansas State's favored by 9, and the over and under is sitting at 50.5. You got both of these teams at 7-2, identical 4-2 conference records. Kansas State, can they bounce back after losing to Houston a couple weeks ago? That was definitely kind of a disappointing loss, and definitely not a reasonable loss for Kansas State either. But you look at the other side, Arizona State's not a bad team. They're sitting there at 7-2. I think they have a great shot here to pull off an upset, in my opinion. The Sun Devils have been a surprise team, in my opinion, as well. So I would not be shocked here if Arizona State pulls off the upset. But Kansas State is playing at home. You kind of expect them to bounce back here, but you never know. It's the Big 12. Anything can happen here in this conference. We did see, we've been seeing some upsets now here in the Big 12 in the month of November. We've seen Kansas State go down, to Houston. We've also seen also Iowa State lose 2 games in a row to Texas Tech, and then, of course, last week, to Kansas as well. We'll talk about that more in just a second, but this is definitely an upset alert game, in my opinion. Next up, we got another Group of 5 game, Tulane at Navy. This one's going to be at noon Eastern time on ESPN2. Tulane is favored by 7, and the over and under is at 53.5. How about this? Tulane is ranked in the top 25 in the playoff rankings. I forgot about Tulane. This is a really good Tulane team. It's sitting there at 8-2. Both of these teams are in the American. You got Navy on the other side. That's 7-2. They've been also a pretty big surprise team as well this year. Navy's going to try to really run out the clock in this game, really going to try to run that triple option and everything, and Tulane probably will try to be consistent on both sides of the football, but it's always definitely tough to kind of defend that triple option, and I think an upset probably could happen here. Again, I don't really know much about these group of 5 teams. I watched Navy once this year when they played Notre Dame, and they did not play well in that game. We knew Navy was not on the level of Tulane, or on Notre Dame. So again, I wouldn't be surprised if Navy pulled off the upset here. Again, I don't really know much about these group of 5 teams, but I think it will be a competitive game. Tulane at Navy at noon Eastern time on ESPN2. Next up, we got LSU at Florida in the SEC. This one is the second game of the triple header on ABC. This one's at 3:30 Eastern time on, like I said, ABC. LSU favored by 4.5. How does LSU bounce back after a very disappointing loss to Alabama? They got blown out in that game. LSU now sitting there at 6-3. Their playoff hopes are now over. You kind of expect LSU to bounce back here, but they're playing on the road here at the Swamp. It's one of the toughest places to play in the SEC. And look, I know Florida is 4-5. They're coming off that very tough loss to Texas, but that was a very tough game for them. They had the third-string quarterback in there. And without DJ Lagway, I don't really think this is a really good Florida team. And with DJ Lagway in there, I think he does give them that really good Florida kind of, quarterback room and everything. And I think Florida, with him using his legs, I think that will definitely be really tough for LSU to stop. And, there is rumors out there, I don't know if this is true or not, that, DJ Lagway possibly could play in this game. I really don't know, though. I don't think it's true or not, but, if he does play, I think Florida could pull off the upset here. But if he doesn't, LSU probably should bounce back here. And, Florida definitely has a very tough schedule and everything the rest of the way. But if Florida, if DJ Lagway is back, I think I can expect a close game here. But if he is not back, I think Florida's definitely going to get blown out in this game. But LSU is favored by 4.5. You kind of expect them to bounce back here. And we will see what they do here against Florida after the loss to Alabama. And then the last most likely upset alert game here for this week, it's also in the Big 12. Kansas at BYU at 10:15 Eastern time on ESPN. BYU is favored by 3, also known as a field goal. And the over and under is sitting at 55.5. The Jayhawks, they're coming off that big upset against Iowa State last week. So you're probably wondering, why is BYU on upset alert this week? Well, when you watch my video from last week in the upset alert video, we saw BYU survive against Utah and everything on the road 22-21. I did not have that game on upset alert. I should have, but I didn't really think an upset was going to happen because Utah wasn't really that great this year, but it did almost happen. Now I think it could probably happen here this week, not saying it's going to, but yeah, this is the Big 12. This is a conference, again, that any upset can occur. Again, the Jayhawks did that last week to Iowa State. Can they do that here against an undefeated BYU team? Look, I know they're 3-6. They haven't been really that good as we thought they were going to be. But, again, BYU, we've seen them have some close games. And I think this is definitely one really to keep an eye on here if you're a BYU fan or a Big 12 fan in just general. So, yeah, definitely put BYU here on upset alert this week since we couldn't do it last week. But I got BYU here on upset alert here for week number 12. So those are my upset alert games heading into week number 12 of this 2024 college football season. Let me guys know what you think. Who you think is going to go down this week? Who do you see getting upset here out of these 8 games that I picked? Let me know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.